And welcome to Just One More Watch. Remember when I said 2 weeks ago that I hadn't looked at a Kickstarter watch in ages? Well, the old bus analogy is back because here's another one. But it's not by a new company, it's by a company that has turned over tens of millions of dollars selling tens of thousands of watches, but it still launches everything they do via the platform. That brand is, of course, Xeric. If you have not heard of them, then let me assure you, you're in for a bit of a treat today. Let me roll some footage of Xeric reviews from the past, including the Halograph, the Solascope, the Apollo 15, the Voyager, and the Triptych. This lot should give you a bit of a flavour as to what the brand are all about. They take the three-handed analog watch design rulebook and throw it straight out of the nearest window. I have reviewed a bunch of their watches on the channel and they have all been more than just a little bit bonkers. It has, however, been a couple of years since I last looked at a Xeric, but they're back today with a brand new watch that they claim to be the first affordable mechanical double retrograde watch in 50 years. But what on earth does that actually mean? Well, they say a picture speaks 1,000 words, so let me just show you what it means. It means that when the minute hand, which is the longer and paler of the two hands emanating from the left side of the watch today, and is read by the rainbow coloured scale on the right hand side of the watch today, when it goes from 0 and round to 60, it flicks straight back up to 0. Now, if that was all this watch did, it would make it a single retrograde watch, but of course it's a double retrograde watch. So when the hour hand runs all the way from 12 to 12, it also flicks straight back up to 12. Now, Xeric are not the only brand making retrograde watches, but I could not find a double retrograde anywhere near as cheap as this one. But before we go any further, I'm sure you saw the pop-up. This video is sponsored by Xeric. I will therefore, of course, leave a link to their campaign in the description of the video. Their Kickstarter launches go off, and with over 2,500 people waiting patiently for notification of this one, it looks like it's gonna go off as well. Let's flip the camera and have a look at it. All right, let's get into it. I had to do it kind of live, top-down, hands today because it's such a dynamic watch. It really has to be seen in action to be appreciated. There's no point in just giving you endless static B-rolls. It just wouldn't have worked. What to tell you then? This one, the campaign starts, the Kickstarter starts on the 25th of February. They're launching 7 different colour versions, 999 pieces of each, prices from $699 US to $749 US. I guess that means you don't have to jump onto this one the first second the campaign starts. Gives you time to have a look at the watch, but do check if they have got some kind of early bird deal going. Now, one thing I noted, and I'm sure this warning will be in the bottom of every single box, the movement is designed for forward time setting only. Setting backwards may harm the mechanism. 2-year warranty as well, by the way. Now, with a lot, but not all Xerics, and this one is included, you have to relearn how to read the time, okay? For example, if I just showed you a standard watch with the hands at that position, you would think it was about 20 past 2, wouldn't you? You're wrong. It's actually 4:45. So at glance, there is rather a lot to take in here, particularly with this rainbow colour version. Legibility, by the way, varies wildly across the range, so do check out the different colours if that's a consideration for you. Once you've taken it in, once you've worn this watch for a day or two, it does kind of begin to make sense, even if it is in a slightly twisted manner. So, hour hand points to the hour scale, 12 round to 12. Minute hand points to the minute scale, 0 round to 60. So indeed, rather than this being 20 past 2, it is after 4 o'clock. Follow the minute hand scale, it is 4:45. There is a date complication there. Currently reading 22, more on that date complication later. Now, I said in the intro that Xeric claimed this complication hasn't been seen in 50 years, hence why this watch has a decidedly 70s look and feel to it. These retrograde flyback movements were, I wouldn't say common in the 60s and 70s, but that is when they had their moment before fading into obscurity. All the colours, therefore, are kind of fun and funky. It's the gold ones that speak to me. I think they really lean into that whole 60s, 70s aesthetic nicely. So dimensions and specifications on this one, 60-70 style, they've gone for that kind of classic TV case shape. Now these cases always wear a little bit bigger than the headline dimension, so it is a 38mm
kind of wears effectively like a 40 on my wrist anyway, as you'll see in a minute. 13mm thick with a lug tip to lug tip of 44. So square case, you get a really compact lug to lug. Integrated bracelet, so lug width is not applicable. For your reference, the bracelet comes out of the case at about 23, tapers down to 18 and back up to just under 20 at the clasp. As size for my 7-inch wrist, it weighs in at 154 grams. Crystal is flat sapphire with anti-reflective undercoating, 50 meters of water resistance, and the movement. The movement in this one is a Xeric X 5.1, which is a Miyota 9015 with a custom module in top. No shame in that whatsoever. The Miyota is a great base caliber for making this type of watch. It's accurate, reliable, Japanese made, it looks pretty good, and it is ripe for modification. I am, however, not going to talk about accuracy today because that's not the point of a Xeric. This one doesn't even have a second hand, so really, accuracy is neither here nor there. Now, Xerics are always really nicely made and really nicely finished, and this one is no different. Super fine brushing on that mid case. You've got a little high polish undercut for comfort, high polish chamfer running from lug tip to lug tip. Dual level high polished fixed bezel. You've got those high polished mid links of the integrated bracelet. And check the crown guard. Again, really nicely done with little high polished edges on all four sides and a Xeric branded crown. The bracelet's fine, very much suits the watch. It's a 3-link oyster style. High polished mid links, they're all the same length, and the taper comes from the satin brushed outer links. The clasp though, the clasp could be doing with another couple of holes of micro adjust. It's just got a pressed upper, it is rather thin, and they don't supply half links, so you are going to be wearing this one loose, and at 155 grams, it might have been better to have the option of just a couple more holes so you get a slightly better fit. Alright, dial and hands. There is a lot to take in here, so I am going to start off with a couple of more gentle static shots before showing you the movement in action again. Alright, starting left to right, the two hands today, only two hands today of course, are situated in the center of a number of concentric circles. The Xeric logo is applied above the pinion. Then there's a chamfer to a slightly higher flat area with printed numerals. Now Arabics 12 to 11 and then 12 again. Next to them are applied indices, 13 applied indices. Now these are a kind of brushed silver metallic. They're beveled with a flat leading edge and they are loomed. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, believe it or not, this watch has some loom as well, although quite how you read it is another matter. Beyond those indices, there's a minute track, again for what that's worth, before horizontal rainbow coloured lines leading to another Arabic scale, 00 down to 60 on the far right of the dial. And lest we forget, it's a date complication with a cyclops somewhere between the 6 and the 30. Moving back to the hands, they're very simple. Again, that kind of late 60s, early 70s style flat stick hands. The hour hand does have a tiny chamfer at its tip, and once again, both of those have a little bit of loom towards the edges. But let's have some fun with the movement. Let's pull the crown out to the first position. If you roll it forwards, you can change the date. You can see there 25-26. Pull the crown out to the second position. It hacks the movement, but you would hardly know it because there isn't a second hand. Roll it backwards, and there you go. You can see that minute hand in action. When it gets round to 60, it flies back up to 0. Flies back up to 0, again. The hour hand goes to 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It's heading for 12. Minute hand gets to 60, and both hands fly back to reset. Now, as you can see there, the date complication ticked over, so we just found midnight. I've never seen one of these before. I'm not sure I'm going to see too many of them again, and I'm pretty sure I'm not going to see too many of them for under 1,000 US. Now, despite the unconventional time-telling experience, the on-wrist experience is rather conventional. If you have ever worn a Mido Multifort Big Date, it's exactly the same. Any of these kind of TV-style cased watches, the kind of square case watches, they all wear rather similarly. There is a bit of weight to this one. That's why it would have been nice to have a couple more adjustment holes. But overall, it's not too bad, and that nice and compact lug-to-lug fits me well. Now, as discussed, legibility does vary considerably across the colour range. This one with the silver grey hour hand against the kind of black silver concentric circle portion of the dial is not fantastic. Now you see it, now you don't. But Xerics are not about legibility or practicality, are they? So I have no intention about moaning about the lack of legibility or the lack of practicality and the fact that you have to completely retrain your brain to read your watch in a different way. Xeric devotees will no doubt be well used to that by now. But I do have a couple of other complaints specific to this model. The lume, I'm just not quite sure why they bothered putting lume on this watch at all. I mean, for a start, it isn't particularly strong. If I speed up this footage, you can see it's pretty much all over after about 10 minutes. But if I reverse the footage and take it back to the beginning of the video today, what time is it anyway? It's not an easy watch to read. Certainly initially anyway, you're going to be relying on those two scales for reference. You can't see the scales after dark at all, so you're on your own. If I was groggy in the middle of the night, I might well glance at this watch and think it was 2:20, when in fact it was 4:45. The bracelet's pretty much in keeping with the overall quality of the watch. It's push pins, but I'm not going to complain about that. I have complained a couple of times already about the clasp. I would really love to see one, maybe two more holes, particularly if they're not going to provide half links. And really, why have they bothered putting a date complication on this watch at all? I know that for some people a date complication is a must. I'm just not sure that those people are Xeric people. It looks a little bit odd. It kind of breaks up the symmetry of the watch, and it's a struggle to read it. There's a lot of flecto here because of that cyclops. It's a small date wheel in there anyway, and the fact that you can't even read the date from their own press shots does rather raise a question mark as to how viable it really is. But never mind all of that, just check out this double retrograde mechanical movement in action again. This is why you're buying this watch. You're buying it because you don't have this complication in your collection already. You've maybe never seen this complication like I have, and Xeric are the masters of doing all of this and maintaining relatively affordable prices. Their watches may be crazy, but they're the right type of crazy. So there you have it, not without some niggles then, this one. And of course, being a Xeric, you have to completely retrain your brain to read the time in a totally different manner. But people who are into Xeric are all over that already, and you can't argue with what the brand does. It consistently pushes the boundaries of watch design, but for a fraction of the price that everybody else does it for. Well done for making it all the way to the end of the video. If you didn't fancy this one, why not check out another couple of Xeric reviews? I'll see you again in the next one.